We don't want you people to use aversive control or fear of consequences to drive behavior, but certain things you just need that behavior to stop. And if you're using lots of reinforcement, you know it's a reinforcer because you've involved the students in, or you involve the child in, right? That stuff is socially valid. Yeah, they're going to be more likely to engage in the behaviors, and you're not going to get to the place where you need Steve to come in to shape this stuff up. You know, what you just said there is probably 90% of this stuff wouldn't even need to happen if people had some basic plans in place. What do you think about that?
I utterly agree, and I'd like to hone in a little bit more on the P word, because it is another challenge in our field and people's understanding of ABA. And like you said, coercion is not the foundation of anything, right? It is not something that you want to build on with things. And yet, in the real world, there's very, very socially valid ways of essentially punishing something. I'll give you a really natural sounding example, and it won't, if I didn't tell everyone that it was punishment, they might not recognize it as such. Yeah. All right. So Johnny is struggling with his math, and let's say he has kind of a bad attitude about it too. His STEAM is like a 2 on a scale of 1 to 5. He's being dodgy.
Analogy, right? It's cool.
I'm having problems getting him going on it. But we've established enough of a relationship. He knows like computer time comes after math time is done. Like when you finish the math, that's when computer time is going to be. This has been established through our history. Now he's being dodgy with me, low STEAM. I say, okay, well, you don't seem ready yet. I'm going to help Sarah over here because she seems ready and she needs help. So I'm going to allocate my attention to her to help with this. That's actually punishing his dodgy responses. He had help available with something he knows he needs to get done, and he lost help in the most natural of ways. Why would I want to invest all my time trying to what would end up being coercion? Now I'm like, no, look at the math, work on the math. I don't want to beat you up to do your math. I want to help the people who are ready to do their math. And soon you'll be ready, and then I'll come back and be able to reinforce with my assistance.
That beautiful analogy, and just for anybody that's just who's not in the science, that means completing the math has got to be a reinforcer to them, right? And also access to Steve's help needs to be a reinforcer, right? So those are like a couple things that are very important. Otherwise, if the student doesn't care about the math and you go on, they're like, great, man. You know what I mean? I'm not going to do this. Yeah. So there's got to be the contingencies got to be in place. But that's a great, one of the examples I give is like, hey, students run in the hallway and I say, stop running and walk back, right? That little thing. And they walk back. I say, thanks for walking. Have a great day. That's it. If in the future they no longer run as a result of that, that was an effective punisher. I didn't have to be mean or coercive in nature, and I'm focusing on reinforcing the right behavior. The thing is that we don't equip people with punishers because we're afraid they're going to use it because we know it's negatively reinforcing. We know it works. They see it work in the moment, but it's winning the battle, but losing the war, right?
Yeah, exactly. And there's so much of this when I talk about, I talk a lot about letting consequences work for us. At the end of the day, that's where the stability comes in. Is like the consequences actually did the work, so we didn't have to puppet everything that happened on the antecedent side, right? Tons of antecedent things that you can therefore almost never get rid of. Like here, let's set up our supports, and those are going to be here now forever. But there's a balance that is necessary to understand that if we're letting the consequences of running in the hallway work for us, or of not applying oneself to one's math when you had assistance, if we're giving those consequences the chance to work, the antecedent arrangement needs to be supportive enough that on an average day, our kids are going to be succeeding with this 80-90% of the time. So we're not just setting up, we're just giving corrective feedback over and over.
Teachers, just any of the educators are listening to this. So, what Steve's talking about is like all the environmental adjustments that when a behaviors come in, they ask you to make, right? And so it's why part of the things that when, that you, if you can, avoid them coming in, because they're going to ask you to be doing a whole bunch of stuff more or less or differently, right? And when I say avoid it, what I mean is focus on those simple things that we just talked about, right? Your classroom management plan and involving the students and developing it. Make sure that you know what you expect and that you've taught that, and they know what you expect, that you can ask them if they can communicate, right? What are the expectations? And they can show you those things, right? And make sure you know what the reinforcers are, what's important to them, and make sure they've been involved in the correction. They know why you're correcting them. Under those cases where knowing is a thing, right? Where you can explain it, because it's not always that way. But again, when people do come in, and for behavior analysts listening to this, on the other hand, find the things that's the easiest thing for the teacher to do.